video tutorial. Here you'll be learning the full C programming, whether you're a novice, whether you are a beginner, whether you are an intermediate C programmer. This video comprises of the steps in which what you're supposed to know as a C programmer, and to write any C program, the various tools you need to have, and how versed you are with them, the various concepts you have to understand before becoming a C programmer. So the first thing we'll be discussing on, I have a PDF here, and at the end of this course, you're going to be having the PDF. It's over 300 plus pages. We are not going to be covering all of this in this video, but we're going to talk on the basics, what is actually necessary to become a C programmer. So the first thing we're going to be looking, before venturing in any programming language, there are some key concepts that you need to know beforehand. That is what we call algorithm. So an algorithm is simply a step-by-step method or a step-by-step procedure for solving a particular problem. So when you have a step to actually solve a particular problem, you now convert that steps now into a written code. So the basic and fundamental of C programming comes with us understanding the step-by-step procedure in writing every C program, and also the syntax in which you write in the C program. So for every language, even English, when you're speaking it has its way that you're supposed to speak. Yes, you don't just speak English because you when speak English. So without wasting much of our time, without further ado, we're going to get started immediately. So there's a lot we are to cover actually. There is a lot we are supposed to cover. That's from the basics of C programming till becoming a C programmer. So the first thing I'll be discussing on is this tool you need to master, you need to be versed with. There are several tools before you want to write a C program. We have Visual Studio Code, but Visual Studio Code, you can write C programs there unless you install the C extension. We'll be using what I use mostly frequently, what I call Dev C++. So this is the application, Dev C++. So I'll send the link in the description for you guys to get it. It's not that much, it's about 100 mega maximum. So this is how the application is going to look like. So I'm going to first of all start by showing you how to use this tool called DevC before you're getting started with the C programming. But before you want to know how to use a tool, you need to know what C programming is all about. So we'll be moving to the first chapter. What we'll be discussing is actually we're getting started with C programming. So to actually create a C program, there are some series of steps that you need to know. So yeah, you have a syntax. You have the syntax of a C program. The syntax of a C program is just you have hash include stdio in tags. We have the main function. That's where execution of the program begins. Then the put there is a function in C program that helps to display a content on your screen. We can either put s or print s, you get. So basically, I know it might sound strange, but as we move ahead, you're going to understand more better. So let's neglect all of this. There are some series of things that you need to know. In every C program, we'll just dive into what we need to use. So like I said, I'm first of all going to explain how to use the tool. So I'm just going to separate my screen into two separate halves. I have here my Dev C++ and I have here the lecture notes. You get. So that's what we will be using. I have here my Dev C and I have here the lecture note. Okay, so the first thing you're supposed to do, I'll just create a folder on my desktop. You can name it as anything. You can name it as anything. I'll create a folder on my desktop and say my C tutorials. So that's what I'm having. So I've created my folder. That's the first thing you need to do. The next thing now is to open your Dev C. So I have opened my Dev C. The next thing now is for you to understand how to use the Dev C application. So at the top of your corner, you can see file, you see edit, you see search, you see view, you see projects, you see execute, you see tools, you see tools, you see A style, you see the windows, you see how. So we're going to be talking about all of this. Okay, we're going to be discussing about all of this. All right, so we're back. So the first thing I need to tell you, if you want to create any project in C, what I usually go, you go to the where you see new, you click on new, you come to project. Don't create a source file. Don't click on source file. The shortcut to create a source file, you can just click Control and then you start writing everything from scratch. But I want to build a project in C. So you click on project. It is going to open a toggle bar for you. You're going to see new project. You see the basic, the multimedia. That's the various form in which is being displayed. You have the Windows 32, you have the file editor and the MDI editor, the animation editor and the rest. So we have a console. So what we're going to go, you go to the basic, you see where you're showing console application, you click on it, you click on C project, then you toggle this bar here, make it default language, meaning all your project that you'll be writing, it is going to be in C. Then C++ now comes into it. You can write either a C++ program or write a C program. C is actually the foundation of programming. Every programming is being generated out of C programming. So before you want to venture into any programming language, I prefer you start with C first before going into something like JavaScript, Python, because when you start with C, it is a foundation, meaning all programming language are being built out of C. So after when you click on OK, alright, the first thing that you need to do, you need to select the folder you created. So I created my document on my desktop, and then I'll just scroll down to search for so my folder. You see my first C tutorials. I'll click on it, then I'll click on I'll click on click on save. So this is what we have. An automatic created setup appears for you. Yeah. And beside now you see your project 1. That's your first project you have built so far. So this is the structure of C program. I will now explain what all of these means. Okay, when you create a C program, automatically it includes a C program using the project tree. It includes the standard input header file. This is actually a preprocessor that helps you to use a printf statement, the scanf statement, the putf statement, and the getS and the rest. So we're going to talk about preprocessors in the next as we are progressing with the video. So the next thing that you need to see here is the int main. Every C program has the int main. Or you can see some people will write void here, yes. But this int simply means you are returning an integer value. That's why you see return 0 here. So the int here stands for I'm returning an integer value. So what is inside here is not actually necessary. So I can just keep it like that, yes. So that's just a structure of a C program. In each and every C program, what happens is the execution of the program begins inside the main function. That's the main function. I need to note every C program needs to have the main function because the execution of every C program begins in the main. We'll be talking about different types of functions, as the user-defined functions and the predefined functions. You're going to understand more better. So we should just talk about little things here before we move ahead. So the first thing I'll be discussing on now is comment. So you see, run this program using the console program. So there are two ways in which you can write comments in C. Either I write this, let's say, hello, my first C program. So the comment now, it's a statement that is actually telling the programmer what you're going to do either below or what you're doing above, what the program is all about, or what that step of code is all about. I love writing comment at each step when I'm writing my program, so it will help me when I'm coming back to my code. I actually understand where I left the program or where I ended. You get? So understanding how to write comments, when you're writing comments in your program, it actually helps you and you help other users that they are using your code to actually understand that this is what you're doing, this is what you are not doing. So the first thing you need to understand that we have two types of comment. We have the multi-line comment and the single line comment. The single line comment, you just use 2 forward slash like what I've used here. Whereas the multi-line comment, you use a forward slash, use an asterisk, and then you write whatsoever you want to write here, blah blah blah. You close it with an asterisk and use a forward slash. So that's a multi-line comment. Multi-line comment meaning I can give a space here. Whatsoever will be written inside this space is going to be a comment. Yes, but this one you cannot come below and say no. You see there are changes now. So this is a single line comment with 2 strokes, and this below is a multi-line comment. So that's how to write comments in C program. So the next thing we need to be discussing on are data types. Okay, yes. I'm just going to come below. The next you'll be looking into are data types. So what are data types? Data types are simply values and set of operations that can be performed on those values. What I'm trying to say here is, let's say there are various types of data types in C program. We have integer, we have floating point, we have string, we have characters, and different types of data types in C program. So let's say you want to write a program that adds the sum of two numbers. The first thing that you need to understand is the declaration of your inputs that you'll be needing. Let's say I want to write a program that prints the sum of two numbers. So I'm going to write a comment here so that I'll be commenting and displaying whatsoever. So a program that prints the sum of two numbers. So the first thing you need to do now, what are the necessary things you need to write this program? So the first thing I need are the input. So what I'm just writing here, these are just my algorithm. This is a step in which I need to get. So the input I need are the number 1 and number 2. So I need two numbers. I'm going to name the number 1 and number 2. So you need to know the data type in which this number will be stored in. Is it an integer? Is it a floating point? Is it a character? Is it a string? The difference between integer and a floating point number or a real number. Floating point simply means real. Real number takes 9 point. They takes a decimal point here. Yes, this is what a float or an integer a float or a real data type in C is all about. And they have this is a syntax. You declare a floating point number, you have float, then you write the name of the data type or the name of the input that you're going to be using, the variable that you're going to be using, say number 1. So this is how you're going to be declare a floating point number. So the next one I'll be discussing is integer. Integer, you use an int. Yes, that's a keyword to write an integer value. You use an int. So this int just simply means an integer. So int num1, and then you put a semicolon. Every statement ends with a semicolon. Yes, in C program, each and every statement ends with a semicolon. So the next thing you need to be talking about is a character. So then you declaring or using a character, you can use char. Let's say A. A is a character. So the next one is a string. A string is also something like this string. Then you say love. Yes. Okay, this is what we're having. So a string is simply a combination of two or more characters. So like an example, your name is a string value. So without further ado, we have understood what various data types are. So there are other data types like you declaring an array. We have enumerations, but those are just user-defined data type that is being defined by the user, the person writing the code. So I've understood what data types, the basic data types or the primary data types in C are all about. So the next thing you're going to do now, let's write a program. I need two integer value. Okay, the program is just to print two numbers. The program is just to print two numbers. So I need two integer values. I'm going to be using their data types of I will just say of type int, so of type integer, sorry. So you can just say the data types of those two numbers will be of type integer. So the next thing is the user needs to enter the various number, meaning I'm not going to hard code. Hard code simply means I'm going to place values inside the number that will automatically give the value to them. So let's first of all do hard code first before this. Let's do hard code first. So I'm going to firstly hard coding. So firstly I'm going to hard code. Hard code simply means I'm going to say num1 is equal to 5, and then num2 is equal to num2 is equal to 10. So the answer that needs to be printed is 10 plus 5, which is 15. So I'm just going to go out of this my comment. Then the next time I'm just going to print the sum. So this is actually my steps. Yes. So I'm just going to go out of the comment. Like I said, comments are not being compiled by the program. So comments are not compiled, they are neglected since they are coming. So what we're going to do now here, the first thing I need to do, I'm going to hard code and I'm going to do the variable declaration at this first step. So what I'm doing here is called variable declaration. I'm declaring a variable of type int, and the variable needs to contain, that's the first variable, which is num1 is equal to 5. I'm hard coding, meaning I'm giving a particular value directly to the number, because a variable is a container used to store values. So in that container, I'm placing 5 inside the container is already occupied. You get? Yes, the container is already occupied. But below, you can override the container, meaning you can change the contents inside that container and place some certain values. So I'm saying num2 is equal to 10 based on what we have here. Like I said, each and every statement end with a semicolon. By the separation of various variables, you use a comma. So let's advance with what we're doing. So the next thing I need to do, I need to print directly the sum of that two numbers. So to print a content, either you're using the putS function or the printf. Either using the putS function or the printf statement, or the printf function. So this printf, print with an f, is actually your printing, meaning you're displaying whatsoever is going to be in this parenthesis on the screen. So we have a syntax to write the printf function. So the first thing that I need, I'll say the sum of, since they are of type integer, what you need to understand is they are format specifiers, meaning the format in which the variables are being stored. The format here is an integer. So they are format specifiers for various data types. The format specifier for an integer value is either %z or %i. So I'll just come below here and say the format specifiers for various data types. So if you're using an integer, the format specifier is %z or %i. If you're dealing with float, the format specifier is %f. So there are other variable data types like long float, meaning the value of the float is more longer. So the next will be we're going to be using we're talking about is if you're using a character, the format specifier for character values is just %c, and if you're using a string, the format specifier for a string is %s in C. So that's how you know which of these to use. So the sum of %z now is the format specifier for number 1. You getting me? Yes, the sum of %z plus %z. That's the first %z stands for number 1, and then the next %z stands for number 2. So you place a comma, then now you write whatever you're to write beside. So the first one is number 1, number 2, comma. So okay, is equal to percentage. You mean the first one will produce the number 1 value, the second will produce the number 2 value, then the next now produce the sum of number 1 plus number 2. So let's close this. And then there are ways in which, okay, I didn't save the program, so the first I would say first C code. So you can name it anyhow, it depends on you. So when you write first C code, you're going to see above where my cursor is, you're going to see first C code. You automatically be, so the extension for C programs are, we use .c. So you get, so that's what you're having. So if you want to run this code, what you do is you go here, you run first, you're going to see compile now, you click on yes. Compilation simply means you are converting the source code into a machine understandable code, meaning the machine will be able to understand the various things. So that's what we're seeing here. The sum, this is the output, what we were just written. So the sum of number 1 was 5 plus 10 is equal to 15. So thank you, and this is great. You see, you have been able to write your first C code. How great is that? So I'm going to give you some exercises. You can pause the video or you can continue. I'm going to give you some exercises that you're going to do. So the first thing, right? Okay, the first exercise I'm going to say is 1. You write the first exercise. You write a program that prints the product of 2 integer values. You get? So that's the first exercise. The second exercise is you're going to write a C program that prints the difference of 2 integer values, or let's of 2 float values. Okay, we're going to be using float, then no longer int. All right, so that's what we are going to write now. The first one, but you can take your time. You go through it. You try to perform the exercises by yourself. Then you get back to the video to get the correction. So if you're done doing it, so we'll get started with the first one. The first one, we're going to be using hard code. So hard code is not actually necessary. It's not actually nice. I don't actually advise individuals or coders using hard code to write their C program. What I actually advise you doing is you actually ask the user to enter each of the value he or she wants to enter. Meaning you are not going to be dependent on this 5 and this 10. You get? If you want to, let's say, upload such thing online, meaning the user needs to be just dependent, the user will just be able to get the sum of just 5 and 10, which makes no sense. So what you're going to do next is for you to, all right, what you're going to do is, I actually prefer you asking the user to enter his or her values before you can print it. But nevertheless, we're still going to use hard code. Then you convert from the first to the second to the third to using let's say we are asking the user to enter his or her values. So that's what we need. So the first thing you're just going to declare, the first one is product of two values. You're just going to declare the two values. I'm using number 1 and number 2. I'm still going to use 10 and 5. So the next, I'll just change this sum to product of what will be here now is multiplication, and then here is multiplication. Right, so if either you can use an without actually going to your 1 or compile and 1, you can just use F11 to run your program. So that's a shortcut in which you can run your program without stressing. So you can see the product of 5 times 10 is 15. So that's the first exercise that has been done. You get? So that's how to print the product. So the next is the difference of two floating point values. So I'll just come here, instead of using int, I'll use a float. That's a keyword for float. So I'll say the difference of percentage d. Percentage d now here, I'll change this one to number 2 since I don't want to get a negative number. I want to print, let's say, a positive number. I'll change this to number 1. And then I'll just say number 2 minus number 1. So if I run using F11, it's going to print 10 minus 5, which is, it is going to print 0. Why? Because we have not changed the format specifier. Like I said, the format specifier for a floating point number is percentage %f. So if you don't change it, you're using percentage, it's going to print you 0, meaning you have not used the right format specifier. So you change it to percentage %f, and I want this thing to print me to about 4 or 5 decimal places. Let's say you should print 4 or 5 decimal places. So you just put the percentage point, the number of decimal places you want this program to print, or the difference to print. So just put 5 here to be the decimal place for number 1, and then I'll just put percentage 5, meaning you're going to have 5.00000, 5.50, yes. So that's what you're going to have. Then here now I'm going to print this one on the output now need to be in 5 decimal places too. So I'm just going to save, Control S, and then press on X, F11 to run your program. All right, so that's what you're seeing. The difference of 10.00, that's a 50. Sorry, we haven't changed this percentage F. Okay, so the difference here, we'll change this to minus, they'll press F11. So that's that. Okay, the difference of 10.00 minus 5.00 is equal to 5. So that's that. So that's how you can go through. These are just the basic C program. So in this video, we have covered the basic we do an introduction to C. We are talking on how to use comments, data types, operators. So we're going to talk about operators now. So an operator in a programming language is a symbol that tells the compiler or an interpreter to perform a specific mathematical, relational, or logical operation and produce a final result. So the operators that we have been using so far, we have used the addition operator for the first case. So the first exercise, what I did, I use addition. The next we use a product. So the product there, these are just mathematical symbol that actually tells the compiler what you're doing. If I'm putting multiplication, meaning I'm multiplying the value, so you get. So that is a basic definition of an operator. So there are other operators in C, like relational operators, logical operators, and the rest. So let's take, for example, you want to print the sum of two numbers that are divisible by, you are going to print the difference of, let's say you're going to print in a range values divisible by 2. What I'm saying is you're going to print 2 from 0 to that number. So you're going to print from 0 to 4, 6, 8. So let's say the multiples of 2. That's what you're to print. So you're going to print values divisible by 2. That's what you're to print. So the first thing you need to take into consideration, like I always say, the first thing you need to take into consideration, that's your, the first thing you need to take into consideration is so I'll just say a C code to print values divisible by 2. Alright, so the first I need to write is my algorithm. Yes, so I need an algorithm. That's the steps that will help me to be able to write this program. So the steps, I will need to be asking the numbers to be entered by the user. So I'm going to say a range value will be entered by a user. I mean, I'm not going to do hard code again. So the next thing, I would say the range value need to be an integer. So let's say user will enter an integer value. Alright, so after that, the user enters the integer value. I'm going to use a loop statement to actually iterate from 0 to that value, that range value. So a loop is simply a data structure that stores values of same data types. So I'm just going to use loop here, but I'm not yet to go in depth about loops. I'm not going to go in depth about loops in here, but I'm just going to explain the basics of what loops are and how you can use loops here. You get. So we're going to be, there are 3 types of loops in C. We're talking about looking at the for, the while, and the do while loop. So we're going to write this program using the 3 different loops in C. We have the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. So also, when we use a loop now below, there is a condition placed to it. That condition says a C code that will print value divisible by 2, meaning the value needs to be divisible by 2. And the operator that we use for this is called the modulo operator. The modulo simply prints the remainder of 2 values. So if now the condition, this is what we'll be using, we're going to be using an if condition. We'll say if let's say the number is divisible by 2, that's the remainder of the number being divisible by 2 is equal to 0, you're going to display, you're going to print f the number you want to enter, you're going to print f the number and blah blah blah. Else you're going to, so it's just a single so you're going to focus on just the first if condition. They haven't said that you should print and we'll print the rest number that are not divisible by 2. You get. So this is what we're having, and so okay, that's what we are having now. So we're going to print the various number that are divisible by 2, then we just end our program. So the first I'll be using is the first loop I'll be using is a while loop. So if it's just a conditional statement is in C program that produce a true value whenever this expression inside is true. So this expression can be anything, but based on the condition that you're based on, or based on the condition that you are using. All right. So the next thing I'll need to do, let's check above and see if my main function is already there, so I don't need to use any main again. All right. The next thing I will need to do now is to enter the declaration of the number that needs to be entered by the user. So just say enter range, semicolon. Like I said, each and every statement ends with a semicolon. So the first thing that needs to appear on the user, it's a statement that will ask the user to enter the number. So say printf enter the range of numbers. You get. So ask the user to enter the range of numbers. So I'll use scanf function to read the number that the user have entered. Let's say the user entered an integer value. So say percentage z, which is an integer format specifier, comma, we can now write this ampersand here. It simply means you're storing the value of whatsoever the user has entered inside the value here range. You get. So you're storing the value. If I entered 5, I'm going to store this 5 inside that container range, because normally the container is empty. Like I said, the variable is a container that used to store values. So at this point, the container is empty. So when the user enters the value, that I'm using this thing to ask the user to enter a number. When the user enters the number, the container now is going, this scanf statement is going to collect this value that has been entered by the user and give it now to this container. So you're going to have a container that will have a value now. The container now will be range. You get, that's a variable I'm calling a container. Hope you're not mistook it for something else. So the next thing, the user has entered the number. So I'm going to use now a value to iterate from 0 to that number. So the value I'm going to be using there is I. So I will start from 0 to range. Then you check if the numbers are divisible by 2, then print. Alright, the next thing I'm going to use now is a for loop. So, like I said, you have 3 types of loop: while, for, and do while loop. You get. So these 3 types of loop, we have what we call the pre-test and the post-test loop. From the name pre, it simply means something is being done before anything is being taken into consideration. From the word post, it means the thing that is supposed to be taken into consideration is being done first before the whatsoever you're doing needs to happen. So for loop, what happens is actually a post-test loop, meaning we're going to test the condition first before we either increment or decrement the value. Incrementing just simply means we're adding a value to a particular number. Or let's say, if they say you should increment 5 by 1, they are simply telling you to add 1 to 5, which will give you 6. You get. So that's what you need to know about incrementation here. Decrementation just simply means you're subtracting a value from a number. If I say decrement 3 by 3, the answer that I'm asking for you is, the answer that I need from you is 0. So the first thing I need to do, I will declare the first, alright, I'll just explain what the for loop is all about here. The for loop has its syntax, you get. So the for loop has its syntax. So the syntax of for loop, we have the for in parentheses. We have initialization. I'm initializing any whatever value here. Since we are starting from 0, initialization first. We have comma test condition, comma. So the test condition will be I less than or equal to range. Meaning you are going to start from I equal to 0 to the value that will be entered by the user. Let's say the value of range is 10. So you are going to reach at 10. Then what happens is you're going to start from 0. You start counting all the values 0, 1 till 10. You get what I'm doing here? Alright, so that's that. And then the next is update. So since I want the value of I to be added, 1, let's say 0, 1 to be added to the I value, now will become 1. The next value to be added to I will become 2 and the rest. So I'm going to put I plus plus. Note that sometimes you see I plus plus or I. So you see plus plus I. This I plus plus, this is a postfix incrementation. I use it here because I want the first value of I to be printed before any incrementation is being done. This one is simply a prefix, meaning you increment the value of I, then you give that value now to I. You get what I'm saying? Alright, so we're using a postfix incrementation here. So now we're going to use a braces. Yes, we open a braces. Whatsoever that will be used inside here will be based now on this for loop. So we're going to test the condition of each I value. So we're testing the condition of each I value. We say I start from 0, right? Till, let's say the user enter, I start from 0 to range. And let's say range equal to 10. So I will take from 0 to 10. You get. So I start from 0 to 10. From this value 0 to 10, what will be printed as the I value will be 1, will be 0, incremented by incrementation, that's just I plus plus, or you're going to see something like I plus 1. Simply means you're incrementing the value of I by 1. So we're going to have the I value will take 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So what we want to print are the values that are divisible by 2, meaning we'll check if the first I value is divisible by 2 and then the remainder is 0. So we're going to check if the first I value is divisible by 2, and this is what you use, I modulo 2, meaning I'm getting the remainder of this value. If it's 0, meaning that value is divisible by 2, you get. So the next I'm going to say here is I modulo 2, is it equal to 0? If it's equal to 0, right? If it's equal to 0, the first thing I need to do is I'll print the various values of I. So I'm going to say percentage %d of I. Then now, I'm just printing the values that are divisible by 2. You get. So I'm printing the values that are divisible by 2 within that range 0 to the particular range entered by the user. So that's how you can write a for loop. Inside a for loop, you're using an if condition. Hope this makes sense. So if we run our program, all right, it shows that expected. Okay, sorry. So you use semicolon, not a comma. So syntax error occurred there. Yes. So here you're seeing expected semicolon before this closing tag. So you just need to understand where the syntax of C before you can write. So here we're supposed to use a semicolon, not a comma. You get. So you click on F11. Alright, enter range of value. Let's say I'm entering 20. Okay, the thing that has been printed is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I'm just going to add a space. What I'm going to use now here is what we call an escape sequence. Escape sequence. What are escape sequence? Escape sequence are actually used to modify your code. Let's say I want a line. Let's say I want a new line. A new line. After I've written something, like I just use backslash n. Let's say I want a tab, like a new tab, or just use backslash t. You get. So that's the word. So I want each value of this man when it's being printed. Each value needs to be printed on. Let's say I want to print each value with giving each value a tab. When, let's say I'll give a tab, 0 will be printed. I give a tab, 1 will be printed. I'll give a tab, 2 will be printed. But if I want to print 0 first before I give a tab, that will be necessary, meaning it will start from the end of my screen. So let's run a program F11. Let's just wait for it. Okay. Enter the range of numbers. So just put 20. So you can see 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. These are the values divisible by 2. What if I wanted to print the values that are not divisible by 2? So I'll just come here and say the values divisible by 2. Okay, just give one, sorry. Okay, then now here I'm just going to copy, since I'm just going to say I want to print the values that are not divisible by 2. So if I run this, what has just been added is the values divisible by 2. Nothing has been added. So if I put 20, what happens is that the values divisible by 2, you start from 0, 1, you just be writing like that till, because we are iterating from 0 to I. So whatsoever here to range, for whatsoever here has been written will be printed the number of times that we have entered, or that we are going to, whatsoever will be printed here, all what will be printed here is going to be the number of times this condition is tested true. You get. So if you want that, let's say you want to print the values divisible by 2 are, and you want to print the values divisible by 2, you can leave that's the for loop instead of printing it here. So this condition is going to be tested, and out of this thing now, let's say you want to print the values divisible by 2. With this, the values divisible by 2 here, just 2 here, you cannot like print it outside. Why? Because you're going to print just a single value divisible by 2 since it's not inside the for loop. So I'm just going to put percentage z backslash n. We're just going to print that's from 0 to 4 till the range we entered. So let's say I entered 20, that's the values. So let's say I want to print now the values that are not divisible by 2. So I'm just going to use these braces here, and then below now I'm going to use an else condition. An else condition simply means if what I'm using here is not true, what should be printed now is percentage d, sorry, my two open quotes first, percent, okay, let's use a tab first. All right, let's say our percentage d first before our tab. Okay, all right, so comma, printing the values of I. So save, and then 1. So let's just see the magic, what happens. Wow. Okay, let's say if I enter 20, you're seeing something. 1 has been printed inside. You're seeing 1, 2 has been printed, right? So to actually leave that, I'm going to say backslash n. That will give, sorry, I'm going to say before this one wants to be printed, it will be printed on a new line. You get me? Meaning the value should be printed on a new line. So let me enter a short value now. Let's say 10. So you're going to see 0, 1 to 10 because now I've added this if statement here. You get, yes, because I've added the the else statement here. So if I remove now, the values that will be printed by 2 will be just this, okay, on a new line because I've put this backslash n here. So that's how you can use the escape sequence and do something like this using the for loop and an if condition. So the if condition just simply tells you that whatsoever I'm doing is based on the expression inside the parentheses, while the else condition is negating the if condition above. So we are left with about 10 minutes. I don't want this video to exceed an hour, so we're left with about 10 minutes. So we're just going to discuss. We're going to write this using the. We're not going to write this using the do while loop and the while loop in this video, but I'm just going to show you the syntax in which you can write it using the do while loop and the while loop. So the syntax for while. So while you first of all for while loop you start with initialization. You have while. Inside you have the test condition, and then you have your update. But before the update, you have statements that need to be executed. Before you have your update, then you close your parentheses. So that's just why. So an example will be, all right, let's say I want to use a while loop to do this. You get. So I'm just going to, okay, let's say I want to use a while loop to do this. I'm just going to say if I is equal to 0, set I to 0, that's the initialization. I'm going to say while I less than or equal to range. What happens is I'm going to check if the values are if the values are divisible by 2, then I increment I. So let's run it and see. Alright, it's going to ask me, I'll enter 20. So it says 0 to 4 till 20 has been printed. So that's how you can use while loop. That's another syntax you get. So the next we'll be using is the do while loop. Yes, we're going to be using the do while loop. So the do while loop, you have do whatsoever you are doing. Let's say you have your statements here. Let's say the statements that you want to be executing. Below the statements, you have your updates. When you close this man, you have your while. Then you inside here now you have your test. Here you have your test condition. You end it with a semicolon. So we're going to be using a do while loop here to do this. So the next thing I'm going to do. So let's check first of all. right? Sorry, before you do, there is an initialization statement that needs to be done first. Yes, initialization before the do and the rest. So that's what we'll be doing. So the initialization is still the same. You're going to say do. Okay, do what? What am I doing? What am I going to do? So do, I'm checking the condition. Then now I say I plus plus. Then I'm checking if the value of I is going to be divisible by 2. So I'm going to take I less than or equal to the range of values that will be entered, and I end it with a semicolon. Okay, so if we want, all right, so let me enter 20. So you can see the same thing has been printed. So that's how you can use a do while loop. You use a while loop and the for loop to do things with it. So, well, in the next video, we're going to talk more about C functions. We're going to talk about strings. We're going to discuss arrays, structures, and some other things. So stay tuned. This video was just comprised of us discussing about the basics of C and you understanding how to write a C program. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates. Thank you.